I mean,
I just
again,
can't believe that I can't believe he was talking down to the judge. You don't do that ever.
And interrupting.
So you think that he thinks he's already lost on?
Yeah, he's desperate.
And he's anticipating the appeal. I want to make my record. That's for an appeal.
Yeah.
He said, with all due respect, like 3
I want
times.
to turn your attention to the day of August 25th, 2020.
Okay.
You had spent the night at Dominic Black's house. Is that right?
Yes.
And you indicated that you had worked at the Recplex the night before. Is that right?
The 24th, correct.
Okay. And you worked until about 7 p.m.?
I couldn't give you the exact time, but I'd say I got off around between 6 and 7. I don't recall. It's been a while.
And then you drove your car over to Dominic's house?
Yes.
Okay. So the rest of the time, it seems like you're being driven around in Mr. Black's car. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Why did you guys use his instead of yours, if you know?
At the time, I didn't have a driver's license, and I would drive just to get to work and sometimes to go to Dominic's dad's house.
So even though you didn't have a driver's license, you drove from your home in Antioch to the Recplex to work that day?
Yes, to be able to get to work.
And then after work, you drove without a driver's license to Dominic Black's house?
Yes.
So I assume then on the week prior to that, when you drive yourself to work, that was also without a driver's license?
Yeah, relevance.
I'll move on. So you drove to
faster.
Mr. Black's house, you left your car there.
Yes.
And
Uncle working at a Wendy's.
Yes.
And then the next day, you guys woke up at some point and came down to Ruther. Is that right?
Spent the night at his house and had dinner. Woke up in the morning. Had breakfast. We were going through I was on social media. We saw the damage, and we saw the car store. So we decided to go downtown.
And you came down in Dominic's car.
Correct.
And you said that there was a time in which you were cleaning graffiti at Ruther.
Yes.
And then at some point, I believe you said, and I want to make sure I'm understanding the timeline here, that you went to one of the car sources and encountered the owners, Sam or Sal or whoever they are, correct?
Yes.
Which of the car source locations was That's the one at the northeast corner of 59th and Sheridan?
Correct.
And that's the one that had gotten totally burned out on one of the previous nights?
Yes, that was the one where everything was destroyed. The other car sources still had cars there. So
Now, before that, had you ever worked at Car Source before?
I have not.
Had you ever bought a car there before?
I have not.
Had you ever even heard of Car Source before all that?
Yes.
Through Dominic?
Well, no. I would drive past it on a daily basis. I was in Kenosha almost every day, and I drive down Sheridan Road almost every day.
Okay. So you saw the business along with the churches and the Ultimate gas station and the courthouse and everything else in that area?
Yes.
Okay. And you talked to these owners yourself?
Me and Dominic did.
And did they ask you to come protect the property?
They didn't ask me
Directly?
They didn't ask me directly. They asked Nick Smith.
Okay. And was Nick Smith around for that at that moment?
He wasn't there when me and Dominic were talking to them.
Did you ever personally witness any of these Car Source folks, Sal or Sam or any of the folks that were running that business? Did you ever personally witness them ask Nick Smith to guard any of their properties?
No.
Did you ever witness any of them ask anyone to guard any of their properties?
Not that I can recall.
What time, if you recall, did you find out that they'd asked Nick Smith?
I believe I said in my direct examination between 3:15 and 3:30.
And that was shortly after you had sent a text to Sam, right?
Correct.
And you texted him and asked him if you could protect his business that night, correct?
I did.
And in that text, you said, I'm more than willing and will be armed, correct?
Yes.
You meant you'd be armed with your AR-15?
Yes.
And you said that me and my brother would both be there armed, correct?
Yes.
By your brother, you meant Dominic?
Yes.
He's obviously not legally your brother.
No.
And you said in the text, I just need address. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Why did you need the address of a location you'd already been to?
I just wanted to like pinpoint it on the Google Maps because GPS, because with all the roads were closed down in Kenosha. I just wanted to know the best route to drive there with Dominic.
But you just told us that you drove past here every day up and down Sheridan. Why did you need GPS to help you find a place?
He just answered you.
Didn't listen to the answer.
Right. Go past them every day.
But you still knew where you were going, right?
Sort of, but with like the back roads.
Okay, so let's talk about the roads being closed. What do you mean by that?
Well, Sheridan Road was closed off, and I'm trying to remember. I don't think there were a lot of roads closed off. I couldn't tell you exactly their names right now.
Was that because there was construction going on?
No, they were closed off because of the riots.
They were closed off to keep people out of the area, right?
I have
Yes.
no idea.
And you knew there was a curfew that night, right?
I believe I got an emergency alert text at around 8 p.m.
Just like everybody else saying, stay off the streets.
Objection. There's no curfew charge.
It's still relevant to his decision making. Just like everybody else, you got a message
How would you
saying,
know everybody else got
get
that?
off the streets at 8 o'clock that night, right?
Yes,
And you came down, correct?
already in downtown when I got that message.
Once you got that message, you didn't decide, I'm going to leave and go home like I'm supposed to, correct?
Objection.
I stayed at the car source.
And you knew that there was this curfew in place that meant you shouldn't be there anymore, correct?
There were, I'd say, hundreds, if not thousands, of other people there that night that also got the same message.
So if they're all breaking the law, you can too?
I don't think the curfew was really being enforced.
So if a law is not being enforced, you can disregard it?
Ugh.
Argumentative. Also a stupid question.
Yep. Also calls for legal conclusion.
Also, it wasn't
Kind of.
lawful.
You said that there was a time in which Nick Smith asked you guys to drive him down to Chicago
Correct.
to buy a piece of body armor
Correct.
down by O'Hare.
Correct.
And you guys were willing to do that at first.
Dominic was willing to do it. It was more of Dominic's thing because Nick Smith was going to throw in like $20 to Dominic when he bought it for like gas.
So Nick Smith was going to pay $20 for the gas to drive down to O'Hare where Nick Smith was planning on buying this body armor.
Yes.
And he needed that body, or the idea was the body armor would be used that night, correct?
I believe so.
That's why there was some urgency about going down right away, right?
Yeah.
This was part of the plan to come downtown that night, right?
He wanted to go to O'Hare to buy the body armor. So, yes.
He's had him on cross for so long.
Can you rephrase
Sure,
it?
absolutely.
Like,
Can you ask better
He's
questions?
taking the punch of
To
whatever
get
he's
that body
accomplishing.
armor that day was because he needed it
Hey, Robert.
for that night, right?
I wouldn't say
Hey,
he
Robert.
needed it, but he wanted it.
And instead of making the drive, you
He should have had
that body, your own
at
body
the
armor.
most an hour worth of cross to
Correct.
ask the
You had it along
pinpoint
with you.
questions he wants.
You
touch him up.
brought it along with you that day because you thought
Especially after seeing
you might
on
need it yourself. that
Direct
night,
that he's a
right?
good
No, I
witness.
kept it in my trunk of the car. I always had it.
You drive around with body armor in the trunk of your car regularly?
Well, it was just in the back of my trunk. I never really took it out.
And you said at some point that day you went to Jelinski's. That's the hunting goods fishing store out on Highway 31 and 52nd Street to buy a couple of slings. Is that right?
That's correct.
And this was one sling for you and one for Dominic, right?
Yes.
And you bought two of the identical type of sling, correct?
Yes. The cheapest ones they had.
And that's a single point sling, meaning it attaches to the gun in one location, correct?
Yes.
And then it wraps around your body, correct?
Yes.
And it's designed to help you retain possession of that weapon, correct?
Yeah.
You probably know more about them than I do. I just got it to hold the rifle. So when I'm doing medical aid, I don't have to sit on the ground and have to worry about it being stolen.
Because you realized that you couldn't have that gun on you while you're doing any sort of medical aid, correct?
I knew that I couldn't, without a sling, have it on me. That's why I got the sling, so I could have my hands free.
But even when you had the sling, there was a time in which you took off your entire gun apparatus and handed it to Joanne Fiedler because it was in the way of you trying to treat someone, right?
At that instance, yes, because it was hitting the ground. The rifle was hitting the ground. When I bought it, that was the purpose of it. I don't think it really worked, now that I think of it.
This big, long AR-15 really got
long.
whenever
Big
you
scary
tried to
gun.
help someone, right?
I
Sometimes.
get what he's trying to prove.
If you had
but
a
it's not gonna
handgun,
work.
for example, you could have been, it would have been physically more easy for you to try and treat someone. Fair?
If I
trying
could
to
have
see-
legally carried a
this-
handgun, I would have carried a
This
handgun.
whole thing is
instead of a
about
pistol.
him
I
trying
think
to say
it's
Kyle had
rifle.
no reason to worry about anybody grabbing the gun because it was on a sling.
Yeah, or protecting Grosskreutz for having a concealed small gun.
Or that he didn't really want to
Grabbed
render
some
aid
medical
because he wouldn't have brought
supplies.
such a big gun.
From Dominic Black's house before you came
But
downtown.
what Kyle said
correct?
is
I
absolutely
grabbed extra gauze, but
Simple-minded.
that's about it.
very simple-minded kid. He wasn't getting it thinking someone would take his gun off him. He thought, oh, this is easier to carry. That's exactly how the kid thinks.
You testified earlier that your AR-15 was loaded with 30 rounds of ammunition. Is that right?
Yes.
Where did that ammunition come from?
That was from our last trip up north, from May, the time we took it up north.
So when the gun was left at Dominic's Black's house, it had that ammunition with it?
Yeah, the ammo was in a box, magazine, I don't really know.
When you were at Dominic Black's house on August 25th, you found that AR-15 downstairs in his basement, correct?
No.
Where did you find it at?
It was downstairs in the basement, but I was told by Dominic Black, "Hey, go downstairs, grab that rifle, grab your rifle."
So you knew up until that point that that rifle was being stored in a gun safe in the garage, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't have the code or any access to that gun safe, correct?
I did not.
It just happened that on this particular day, Dominic Black's stepfather had moved that gun into the house, correct?
Yes,
You didn't know that beforehand?
I didn't.
You didn't know that it had been taken out of the safe?
No.
And so you went downstairs and grabbed it.
After instructed to do so by Dominic, I did.
And it had that magazine?
After I was instructed to do so. After I was instructed to do so by Dominic, I did go downstairs and grab it.
And it had the magazine already inserted in the rifle?
It did.
And the magazine was already loaded with 30 rounds?
I believe so.
When did you chamber a round?
I don't know if I ever did.
Well, you had to have to fire the gun, right?
Yeah, I think it was already chambered when I got it. That's what I remember. I remember racking it out all that night.
Because the way this type of gun works is that you have to have a magazine with ammo in it. You have to insert the magazine into the gun, and then you have to rack it to load one of those rounds into the chamber, correct?
Yes.
And you were familiar with how to do all that, correct?
Yes.
And it can't discharge a bullet unless a bullet is racked into the chamber, correct?
Correct.
And so your testimony here, as best you can recall, is that you never had to do the initial racking because the bullet was already in the chamber when you took possession of it that day. Is that fair to say?
I believe so. I believe that it was already racked.
And the ammunition that was in that was full metal jacket ammunition, correct?
223 full metal jacket.
223 being the caliber,
Yes.
and full metal jacket being the type of casing, correct?
Yes. Full metal jacket is the bullet type.
The bullet type. Okay, I apologize. And you're aware there are different types of bullets, like hollow point bullets.
Are
correct?
you?
Yes. Yes.
And when you were in the process of purchasing this gun, well, let me back up for a second. You said that the 30 rounds of ammo were left over from previous. I assume you mean when you were up in Ladysmith
Yes.
and you were practicing with the gun up there?
Yes.
And Dominic Black's family has some sort of firing range or shooting range up there. Is that right?
They have a gravel pit where it's safe to shoot.
And you and Dominic would practice with your AR-15s shooting at targets in that gravel pit, correct?
Correct.
And you would shoot at targets as far as what, 75 yards away?
No.
How close were the targets?
I think the furthest I ever got was maybe from me to the TV.
Good. Inanimate object.
You didn't shoot at any targets farther away than that?
No.
Dominic Black testified that he shot at targets 75 yards away. Did you see him do that?
I didn't, but I don't know what Dominic Black saw or what Dominic Black was shooting at. I wasn't with him when he did that.
I don't
You
know
were
why it's
aware
relevant.
of the fact that the AR-15 was capable of hitting targets much further away than you to the TV, correct?
I believe so.
Did you know the capabilities of your own weapon?
I knew that it could shoot, and I believe from a distance. I don't know how far. I'm not an expert on AR-15s.
There you go.
Yep.
Did you personally purchase that 223 full metal jacket ammunition?
I did not.
Who did?
Dominic did.
Did you ask him to purchase it?
I did not.
So you didn't know what type of ammo was in that gun. Is that right?
I knew they were 223 full metal jackets. I put it in the magazine.
So you knew the type of round, but you didn't know what those rounds were capable of doing. Is that fair to say?
Believe a bullet's a bullet.
As you sit here today, you know that there are different types of bullets, right?
Yes.
You know that hollow point bullets, for example, do
He doesn't
different
have
things
hollow points. Why is it relevant?
Objection,
to an animal
Evans.
or a human than full metal
Why does
jacket
any of this
bullets.
matter?
Correct?
Yeah. Full metal jacket is a defense round, like another type of defense round. I know people use full metal jacket for hunting, and hollow point is something that causes more damage.
Hollow point bullets are designed to hit the
Objection.
animal that they're being shot at. Let's say
Why are you testifying?
Who cares?
explode
Because the
inside.
judge is letting him. That's why.
Correct.
Object.
And the defense is letting him.
No, I don't think so.
And when you
Finally.
say explode, are you saying expand?
This
or
is what we
explode?
Report's
Because
objecting.
there are such things as exploding
It's not
bullets.
Judge is
objecting.
objecting.
Let me
Clarifying.
For the defense.
Mr. Rittenhouse, what is your understanding of what a hollow point bullet would do if it were shot at, say, a deer?
Who cares?
And I don't
Yeah.
think people use hollow point
That wasn't my question, sir. What is your
Zuko
understanding
was shot at
of
a
what
deer.
that bullet would do? Let me rephrase it then, because you're aware that people use hollow point
When
bullets
is lunch
in their
break scheduled?
pistols to defend themselves against other people.
I
I wish
don't
he'd be
know.
like, I don't understand what you're
Ryan
asking.
I mean, I think he's dragging this
Hold
out
on.
Testified
just
in
in
this
case
trial
he has the lunch
that he
break
was
to
carrying
figure
a
out
pistol
anything
loaded
more.
with
It's
hollow point
11:56 there.
ammunition for self-defense. Do you remember that testimony?
I do.
So, what is your understanding, if you have one, as to what hollow point ammunition
This is
would
so-
do to a human?
Objection. Speculation.
I believe it would do
Objection.
the same thing
Relevance.
as any other
Just
bullet.
hold on.
Like I said, a bullet's a bullet. I just believe hollow points. I'm sorry, I don't know much about ammo. I'm trying to think of what I remember, but I just don't know much about ammo.
So you didn't know the difference between what a full metal jacket bullet would do versus a hollow point, right?
I believe a hollow point. I just don't know much about this.
Ask and
I
answer.
believe a hollow point would cause more damage.
To the first target, but it wouldn't continue through to any other targets, right?
I don't know the answer
Whereas
to
a
that.
full metal jacket bullet is
Right now.
specifically designed to
I don't
continue
know.
through its first target and keep flying, correct?
Objection.
you know,
Send the
first
jury
of
to
all,
lunch.
the hollow point is not guaranteed to stay in the first object struck, which is, so what you said was
The
not
judge will
correct.
do his
Secondly,
There's no testimony on that, Your Honor.
no, but you've been testifying, and that's what.
There you go.
We're gonna break the break for lunch.
Go to break for
Please
lunch.
don't talk about the case.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Read
Yes.
what Russ Money
Yes.
Conference.
All right.
You hope at
Let's-
about 12:45.
Let's watch based
Go for a
Wisconsin
break.
judge nuke this guy on ammo
I would
facts.
I would like
What,
to yell
I
at the
mean, the
prosecutor some
defense,
more.
I don't know if they did move it. I only saw the
Apologize.
highlight. They
Time
should
out.
move for a mistrial with dismissal with prejudice. Because
They've
what
asked-
that
they
prosecutor
indicated
did
they
was
might
a
ask.
patent
definitely
violation
bring
of
it up
Fifth
again.
Amendment rights as more than half a century of law. The case should be dismissed with prejudice because it's a mistrial created by prosecutorial misconduct.
He's picking up the
One
books
and
to throw
two,
them at the
he should be
prosecutor.
fired from the prosecutor's office if the prosecutor's office has a iota of ethics in it. We're going to find out whether the Kenosha DA has an iota of ethics in it, because this was a high-profile trial in which his prosecutor went up and patently violated Fifth Amendment rights, an established precedent that's been around for more than 50 years. And third, this prosecutor, if the Wisconsin State Bar and OLR, Office of Lawyer Regulation, has any moral consistency, has any conscience at all, will disbar his ass, as should be the case, because what he did was a patent, flagrant Fifth Amendment violation that cannot withstand any degree of scrutiny.
Robert, what I love is you're as mad as I was when this went down. And for people who don't know, I'm a former prosecutor. You're a criminal defense attorney. All attorneys should be outraged by that.
Yes.
Are we gonna come on?
You
Please
gonna read
deal
him out
with,
again?
deal with the objection while you're mad, please.
Yes. Do it now.
Well, everybody's hangry.
I think the defense was too passive. I don't care what your style is. I think that
Yeah.
he let too
I
much.
agree.
You can't
Oh, yeah.
get. If you don't object, you can't get a mistrial based on a line of questioning.
It was
Binger
terrible.
wanted those answers from Colorado. He wanted the answers he got. He wants to paint him as a kid who is out there irresponsibly with a gun, who doesn't know the ammo, he doesn't know the capabilities. I don't know. It's not the best line of questioning, but he got the
No.
answers he wanted on that, I think. I just think that
Well,
I'm pretty much convinced that Binger is a walking moron, and I don't know the other conclusion.